For my final project presentation, I interviewed Mrs. Shelby Green, who is the current youth leader at a local church in my area. The first question that I posed to Mrs. Green was for her to describe for me her leadership style. We discussed some of the various leadership styles mentioned in our textbook, and she took the leadership self-assessment test. The results of the test revealed that she has traits of both a participative and a servant leader. She stated that she likes to share decision-making with the members of her youth group because she's interested in their opinion as well as making them feel valued. She stated that her greatest value is found in her relationship with God. The second question that I asked Mrs. Green is what personal characteristics she feels make a successful leader. Her response was her ability to be personable. Her main focus is forming relationships with the members of her youth group. She believes that putting the needs of the group ahead of hers will help each member to be more receptive of the lesson that is to be presented. Another important factor she stressed is transparency. It is important to admit your mistakes and let the others know that it's okay to make mistakes and to teach them that God has grace and that He forgives. The third question I posed to Mrs. Green is what are your personal flaws that hinder your ability to lead and how do you overcome them? One of the flaws that she stated was her need for complete control over every process, especially when she feels like the idea is going to be successful. But she's learned to listen to new ideas and solutions and suggestions from others, and she's learned to make compromises with decision making. Another flaw that Mrs. Green stated is that she is an artist. And some of the traits of an artist are very detail-oriented, not being rushed about doing anything. And she revealed that this is something she still struggles with and that she's trying to overcome. Another flaw is that she has adult ADD. She has to develop tools to help her stay organized and manage her personal and professional careers as both a mother, a teacher, and a youth leader. The fourth question that I posed to Mrs. Green is what her experience is with working with poor leadership and what did she learn from that experience. She described her first year as youth leader. The pastor of the church had a great vision for the youth, but had poor initiative and procrastinated quite often. Another issue she faced was the lack of communication between the pastor's ideas and the responsibilities of each person in the particular field of ministry. She expressed that she learned from this experience that it takes teamwork, effective communication, and willingness from every team member to work toward a common goal. Question 5 is how do you determine when an organization needs to change or go to the next level? Mrs. Green referred to the previous question on poor leadership. She stated that if there's not communication and true vision, there will never be change. Leaders often don't realize that they're not being effective, or they do realize it and do not want to admit there's an issue. If a group is successful by achieving goals, the decision to go to the next level is easy, but it's harder to admit when a reboot is necessary. Question number 6 that I posed to Mrs. Green was what strategies do you use to keep your youth group motivated to participate? Mrs. Green stated that she uses expert knowledge as a technique to involve each group member. This technique involves assigning part of the lesson to each group member and allowing them to teach that portion to the rest of the class. This opens up an opportunity for personal sharing as well as opportunity for testimony that may help someone else. Mrs. Green revealed that she shares her testimony quite often to help others who have dealt with teenage pregnancy because she was a teenage mom herself. She also has the youth to present the skits from things that they learned to the church audience in order to share and build on strengths and weaknesses. Question 7 that I presented to Mrs. Green is, what kind of culture do you create for your youth to feel that they are in a safe place? Mrs. Green described her church family as a small family who laughs together, prays together, and worships together. The pastor incorporates prayer meetings where the elders of the church come together and meet with the youth and pray for them. She expressed that this is important because this lets the youth know that they can feel safe discussing anything with her or with an elder and not feel like they're going to be judged. By doing this, they create a safe place to come to and to become part of a family. Question 9 is, how do you promote an atmosphere of teamwork in your youth group, and how do you deal with troubled youth with poor interpersonal skills? Mrs. Green mentioned her response to the previous question with respect to creating a culture of love and acceptance for the youth. In working with troubled youth, the first thing that must be done is to understand the situation that is contributing to the behavior. Many times when youth act out, it's just a cry for help, and pouring the love of Christ into these youth will help them deal with the situation. And it also helps to create a structure to help them deal with different circumstances. The final question that I posed to Mrs. Green is, how do you deal with conflict in the group, and how do you approach topics that may be uncomfortable to discuss openly in church? Mrs. Green stated that when conflict arises in her youth group, she encourages each person to take time to express their opinion and their frustrations, and discourages anyone from openly disagreeing with the person until they are finished. There have to be rules in place for everyone to express their concerns and everyone's voice to be heard. When approaching uncomfortable topics, Mrs. Green often poses a question so that the youth can start to think about what their responses will be. She then shares with them what the Bible says about that particular subject. And again, she often uses her personal testimony as an example. Youth are often misunderstood, and a difficult topic. Examples given can help them to understand the topic better.